Finding a shape that calls you into stability. Letting the shoulders soften, the belly relax. If you need to make any micro adjustments to your posture, tuning into that and giving your body permission to soften. As we listen into how the body is today, we can ask ourselves, what does my body need from me in this moment? Posture is an expression of care, an expression of curiosity. And bringing our awareness to the breath, breathing in such a way that feels good, finding nourishment in breathing. Finding enjoyment with the simple act of breathing in and breathing out. The breath wants to be deep and long. Let the breath be deep, deep and long. If the breath wants to become subtle, let it become subtle. We may increase our effort to pay closer attention to how the breath is, neither forcing it nor controlling it. But if the breath wants to deepen and nourish us, we allow. And breathing in a way that feels good. The breath knows how to take care of us. Our only work is to tune in and take interest. Make the breath and the body more interesting than anything else in this moment, as best as you can. Choose to also anchor yourself in the sensations in the body or sensations of breathing, or perhaps in sounds. So if the breath is not accessible for you today, see if you can generate mindfulness of the body, feeling the feet on the ground or where the body makes contact with the chair, cushion. Leaning into what is good, what can promote the sense of stability in this storm, the winds. And then there's awareness that remains calm and observes the coming and going. Observing what is arising and what is passing away, what sensations are increasing and what is decreasing. Getting in touch with the field of sensations. Touching them one by one and coming back to the breath, the nourishing, conscious in breath and out breath. Noticing patiently, with ease and with gentleness. The tension, energy within the body or in the mind, can we fearlessly turn towards it, remaining calm and saying hello, hello, hello to the pain, hello to the thoughts, the memory, the anxiety, the busyness, the restlessness, whatever that might be. Hello, hello, darling. I know you're there, and I've come home to be with you. these moments of the practice, if you will, I invite you to bring your awareness to the heart center. Notice the breath passing through the heart, the chest rising and falling. And how is the quality of the heart today? Maybe there's some sensations, or maybe no sensations at all. Getting in touch with what is being blocked, what can be let in, what can be released or unbinded. Not that it will happen in this moment, but just awareness of it, of what might be there. And can we offer the heart space and whatever is occupying the heart space some loving kindness, sending the nourishing breath to the heart space. Observing where the heart is caught, if it's caught in worries or sadness or doubt or anxious or excited or touched and inspired. And you might also send loving kindness to some other parts in the body that has been or is now calling for your attention. Sending the nourishing breath to that place within. And with that energy, we also maybe pass along some words. May I be happy and well. May I be healthy. May I abide in well-being. May I be safe and protected. We know of a boundless heart that is free from fear, free from attachment, free from desire. May this mind experience liberation, ease, and relief. awareness back to the body again and returning back to the space in your own time and in your own way. Really inspired to speak on this topic of fearlessness. So far, we've covered some topics that have been really relevant to what might be on everyone's minds and hearts. And a lot of times, in a lot of our talks, it's always some word, either it's a quality of mind or a way to be in the world, or how to treat a certain unwholesome quality. Yeah, good to see your face, Janika. And so today, I felt really this week. I felt really inspired by um, just the ripple effect that came from one person's act of fearlessness. And I don't really follow the news, but just through by way of being in the company of others, that I learned about what the Senator Cory Booker had done inside of fearlessness, and how he really created this way for a number of us. I know for myself that sense of, wow, this is what courage looks like. This is what it looks like to stand in the midst of all the wrongdoing, all the harm and violence, and still stand there. And I just think of like that mountain that, I keep coming back to that image of the mountain enduring the wind, the strong winds, enduring the hail and the stormy weather, and just being able to stand there. I mean, 25 hours, like that's quite impressive. And just that fearlessness that to me comes with the part of us that is afraid, and therefore, you know, through fear, we come to know a fearlessness. And inside of that fear, the only thing we know to do is to either continue to experience fear or to risk it so that we can experience what it's like to not be afraid. And I want to bring this back into the context of our practice with mindfulness and meditation. When we're sitting there in our formal meditation practice, and the mind experiences this bit of tension or angst or restlessness, underneath that, what's really there? We start to unpack and dissect, you know, that feeling. Is there an attempt to try to create a sense of security? Is it a mind that wants to know, trying to get some sense of certainty? And what happens if it can't get to that? What is it worried will happen? What is it afraid of? Right? So, sometimes it could be mm, something so simple, such as, if I forget to do that, I'm going to look bad, or I'll look irresponsible. Or it could be something, such as securing some conditions that we have for life to go well. for our future plans to come together. And there's this ounce or two, or to whatever degree that's there, that there's a bit of a worry. What if? What if? And that worry is projected into the future. What if? And I think this is very, really valid, for our time. And, I reflect on this too. I encounter fear recently when I receive an email from, there's a Buddhist coalition that is forming around the country. And in this email, what was asked is, are you willing to sign, to a petition against the Trump administration? And at first, initially, I was like, oh, yeah, we'd be up for that. And then as I sat with it, I was like, wait a minute. How's this gonna affect me? What is this gonna take away from me? How would it affect my plans and everything that I'm up to? Could I be harmed? Would there be violence? Would there be something that could fall apart if I, you know, supported this cause, this thing that I wholeheartedly believe in or want to give voice to? There was that moment of fear that arose in me. And when we look deeply at fear, you know, in the Buddhist texts, what is pointed out is that fear, the element of fear has in it this sense of I, the self, the concern and worry that we have for ourselves. What will happen to me and mine and I? And when we look at, there's two sides of what gives rise to fear. But I think what's interesting is right now in our time, what's giving rise to fear is for us, at least I know for me, is seeing the unethical conduct out in the world and how it's manifesting and what that could further cause and the harm it could cause. And so in one of the sutras, um, the Buddha talks about these four kinds of people who are with fear, and then there are four kinds of people who are without fear. And there was a Brahmin that approached the Buddha and said to him, I am of the view and opinion that there's no one who, subject to death, is not afraid or in terror of death. And the Buddha said, Brahmin, there are those who, subject to death, are afraid and in terror of death. And then there are those who are subject to death but are not afraid or in terror of death. So we can replace the word death with, losing everything, right? Losing all of our possession, everything that is me, mine, and I, my reputation, my possession, my house, my wealth. If we lost these things, would we be afraid or in terror? And so going into the response that the Buddha gave to the Brahmin, he starts by talking about those who are afraid. And who is the person who's subject to death is afraid and in terror of death? There is the case of the person who has not abandoned passion, desire, fondness, thirst, fever, and craving for sensuality. Then he comes down, we can replace that with he, she, or they, come down with a serious disease. As he comes down with a serious disease, the thought occurs to him, oh, those beloved sensual pleasures will be taken from me. I will be taken from them. So we can think those beloved, possession, my rich, my wealth, my accomplishments, my fame, right, will be taken from me, and I will be taken from them. He grieves and is tormented, weeps, beats his breast, and grows delirious. This is a person who's subject to death, is afraid and in terror of death. And then the Buddha goes on to share 3 more type of people who are afraid and in terror. The next one is one who has not abandoned passion, desire, fondness, thirst, fever, and craving for the body. Right? So the first one is the person who hasn't abandoned that for craving for sensuality. And then the next is for the body. And then the third person is there's the case of a person who has not done what is good, has not done what is skillful, has not given protection to those in fear, and instead has done what is evil, savage, and cruel. Then he comes down with a serious disease, and as he comes down with a serious disease, the thought occurs to him, I have not done what is good. I have not done what is skillful. I have not given protection to those in fear, and instead I have done what is evil, savage, and cruel. To the extent that there is a destination for those who have not done what is good, have not done what is skillful, have not given protection to those in fear, and instead have done what is evil, savage, and cruel, that's where I'm headed after death. And this is if the person has enough mindfulness to recognize that they have not done what is good. And so this person who is subject to death is afraid and in terror of death, because all they worked for in their life was for all these things. And now in the moment where they're at the end of their life, is in a state of terror and afraid. No riches, no power, nothing can save them from this. And then the last of this is furthermore, there is the case of the person in doubt and perplexity who has not arrived at certainty with regard to the true Dharma. So Dharma is the teachings of the Buddha, or the teachings, the universal truth, the teachings of the way things really are. Okay, so then he comes down with a serious disease. And as he comes down with a serious disease, the thought occurs to him, how doubtful and perplexed I am. I have not arrived at certainty with regard to the true Dharma. He grieves and is tormented, weeps, beats his breast, and grows delirious. This too is a person who, subject to death, is afraid and in terror of death. So again, if a person is at least able to see that, here they're describing, it sounds to me like someone who's more mindful, that in that time they have the clarity to recognize their state of mind, of doubt and perplexity, or of their conduct. But this also speaks to those who are not aware of it and how they live their life, that they too, at the end of life, will suffer. Or in the moments where they're close to death, there is, great fear and terror that arises. And then the Buddha goes on to share with the Brahmin that there are four people who are subject to death that is not afraid. They're not afraid and they're not in terror of death. So there is the case of a person who has abandoned passion, desire, fondness, thirst, fever, and craving for sensuality. Then he comes down with a serious disease, and he comes down with a serious disease. As he comes down with a serious disease, the thought does not occur to him, oh, those beloved sensual pleasures will be taken from me, and I will be taken from them. He does not grieve, is not tormented, does not weep, does not beat his brow, his breast, or grow delirious. This is a person who's subject to death, is not afraid or in terror of death. So when I reflect on this, I think of the quality of a person who isn't clinging to that, you know, to sensuality, like the sense pleasure of life. And then the next is the person who does not cling to the body, the person who has abandoned passion, desire, fondness, thirst, fever, and craving for the body. They're not tormented, they're not afraid at the time of death. And then the third is the case of a person who has done what is good, has done what is skillful, has given protection to those in fear, and has not done what is evil, savage, or cruel. Then he comes down with a serious disease, and he comes down with a serious disease that the thought occurs to him, I have done what is good. I have done what is skillful. I have given protection to those in fear, and I have not done what is evil, savage, or cruel. So, to the extent that there is a destination for those who have done what is good, what is skillful, and have given protection to those in fear, that's where I'm headed after death. And so, this person, upon death knocking at their door, is not afraid and is not in terror. So, when I think of this, I think of also a way that we can be that moves us out of fear, and going back to my story about, okay, can, this organization, be put on the line to, in response and as a call for promoting peace and nonviolence. And if I think about it from that side, instead of worrying about me, what would happen to me? What would be done to me if I, you know, sign my name on this, or this organization that could be affected by this? And going away from me and thinking about protecting those who are in fear, that this is what is good, that this is what is skillful, then just even in that, the thought of that, the mind steps out from the state of fear to that place of fearlessness. And the last type of person that is not afraid of death is the case of a person who has no doubt or perplexity, who has arrived at certainty with regard to the true Dharma, with regard to the way things really are. Then he comes down with a serious disease, and as he comes down with a serious disease, the thought occurs to him, I have no doubt or perplexity. I have arrived at certainty with regard to the true Dharma. So this person does not grieve and is not tormented, does not weep or beat his breast or grow delirious, but this person who, subject to death, is not afraid and not in terror. So even that mind that is unshakable, that is so I guess I would say, is certain in their action and in their faith, their understanding, not wavering, not doubting, but there is almost like, I think of it as a conviction of what is real, what is true, right conduct, right action, right speech. So someone who is on the path and understands the truth about existence. That yes, in life there is suffering. So these are the four people who, you know, are not afraid or in terror. And the other thing that I see is like a sort of a similarity with what the Buddha is pointing at is that even in his others, there's another sutra um, called the Bhairava Sutta, the discourse on fear and terror, where he talks about, you know, the practice of going into the forest, the remote forest where there are wild animals, and practicing in those places. And he says the person who is, unperturbed by the wilderness is not bothered, is not afraid because their conduct is purified. They have good conduct, right, in body, speech, and mind, and livelihood. And so, therefore, they live with this sense of fearlessness. And so, when I compare these two sutras, I see that there's something here that the Buddha is pointing to. That if we act in peaceful ways, in compassionate ways, that those ways of being can give rise to this heart mind that is fearless. So when I think back to a senator, Cory Booker, you know, I'm sure he had some ounces of fear in him about what that would mean for, himself. He's putting himself and maybe his family and many things on the line by speaking out. But it was driven by compassion. There was a moment when, I don't know if many of you heard the speech, but you could hear his voice break. I could hear his voice break, and I just heard the compassion inside of him, the tenderness in his heart that he was willing to take a stand, not for fame, not for, some uh, personal gain, but it was out of compassion. That fearlessness arose in him, and that energy to keep going, to keep standing there, speaking for what is right, what is good, what is ethical, what is skillful, and to give protection to those who are in fear. And so, in a way like that, to me, really spoke about the way that we can work through fear to come out on the other side of fearlessness. And whatever that might be for us right now as we work through fear, whether it's where am I going to sleep tonight, or what's for, you know, breakfast or dinner tonight, or what's going to happen to my children, what's going to happen to my possession and asset, my social security. with the causes that matter to me. And how do we use the practice of mindfulness to turn towards how subtle fear can be, or how strong and intense it can be? But if we keep turning towards it and keep investigating into what is this fear made up of, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, what are the non-fear elements of fear? And we can see the concern that we have for self, and then when we turn towards the concern and care that we have for the collective, you know, what are we willing to risk? Just as simple as going on a peace walk, or signing our name on a document, or putting our voice out there when there could be those who don't see eye to eye with us. But to overcome fear, as in the second sutra I shared, is through the proper development of this path, the Noble Eightfold Path of right view or right understanding, right speech, right action, right effort, right intention, right livelihood, right mindfulness, right concentration. That leads to confidence and strengthens the mind, strengthens our mindfulness. And we can also look for ourselves when we have been with people who are dying. If they lived with integrity or good conduct, how are they in those last moments? Or for those who have been swamped by, greed, hatred, or delusion, how they receive the news of their own death or the death of someone else. I want to just pause here and invite your share, your reflection into the space. Who's in the room? There's a mic over here next to the speaker if you'd like to share. And for those on Zoom, you'll just have to raise your virtual hand, and that way I know that if there's someone in the room speaking, that I'll signal that you're next. Yeah. Thank you. Hi, Candle. Mm. Yes, yeah, that way everyone can hear you. Hard to know if the flow of life is working well or not. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Steve, and my pronouns are he, him. And I'm just wondering what sutta number was the first one you referenced. I've been listening to them on YouTube.
Yeah, the first one is the uh, Abhaya Sutta. That is, what is it? Try to find. I'll send it to you. 4.184.
Of Majjhima Nikaya?
No, let's see. Hmm. Mhm.
Yeah, if you need to find it later, that's fine.
Yeah.
I've just been working
It's
through that.
it's AN, the AN
Oh,
184.
Yeah.
On a guitar.
great. Thank
Anita,
you.
yeah. Anita, there we go. I see it now.
Okay.
Yeah, Anita, yeah.
Yeah.
Four,
I haven't gotten to
4.184.
that collection yet.
Oh, mhm. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Hi, I'm Sina. Pronouns are she, her. Um, I, work in the healthcare field and come across, people suffering from various chronic conditions and diseases, cancer. Um, and I went into the field when I was really young. It was the right path. Because I went into it because, I wanted to gain, you know, um, a whole life. Um, and I got exactly what I wanted and then some. And when I was confronted many times to, help people through this fear, um, I became fearful. That was my initial reaction. Um, and then as I started to just sit and be with the various situations, various people, having their own family, their own um, experiences of loss, I found that I could be there for them and um, sit with that, which for them was very comforting. And for me, I was no longer afraid, you know? So in a compassionate way, um, I just wanted to express to people there, you feel that fear too.
Yeah.
You know? That's all I have to add.
Thank you. Thank you, Sina. Yeah, and I appreciate what you're saying because it's in the fear that you can access fearlessness, right? Yeah. That's, as Tiffany Khan would say, it's like, the opposite sides of a coin that, yeah, in fear there's fearlessness, and in fearlessness there's fear. And this, the first sutra, the Abhaya Sutta, I just find such comfort in it, knowing that, oh yeah, we just keep leaning into doing what's good, what's ethical, that we'll experience that sense of safety and protection. And maybe not. Like in the case when we think of Dr. Martin Luther King and how he, transitioned, it wasn't in that way. But he did leave behind a ripple of change, that did, in the end, create protection for those who are in fear.
Well, as you were talking about fearlessness, what it made me think about is how, as I've gotten older, I feel less afraid. And I just wondered if that was just one of the developmental parts of life, because development doesn't stop when you're 18. Doesn't, it continues. There's a process. And I just wondered if just getting older, there's just this feeling of the thing that really I keyed in on was the one where you're not in doubt and not perplexed. Things just may have over the years just have come to make sense. I don't know if that's true. I just wonder.
Yeah. To me, it sounds more like we've cultivated a mind that is free of doubt, and we've cultivated the spiritual factors, that are of confidence, of faith, and that comes by way of the spiritual life, where we come to know of, what is on the other side of fear, which is confidence, faith, that, because actually there are studies, that show that particularly in men over 50, as they get older, they become more afraid. There's some psychologists that did some studies with this. And so, there are certain biological things that occur within us. But what happens is the spiritual practices help us to, calm and shift our, perception, those intrinsic qualities, and that is one of the being free from doubt is one of the access to calm and peace and concentration, leading to concentration. So when we are free of doubt, there's a certainty. There's almost like a way that we just trust in all things. We trust in nature. We trust in how things are, that when things fall apart, that it's like there's this trust that it'll be all right. Things will come together. And I think in the sutra and the words that are put here is like that trust in the Dharma, right? Trusting in the Dharma and the way things really are, trusting in these teachings. Yeah, because I could say I've witnessed people, who are your age who, live in the state of fear, all the time. And what I've noticed is that they don't have a spiritual practice, or they don't have a strong belief in the goodness of life, the goodness of things. And then young folks too, who, could also be in this state. And then those who are free from doubt and full of a sense of, of this solidity, this goodness about life, that they too are in that mind state that is, fearless. Not the youth kind of fearless that we all had at one point, like driving recklessly. Yes, like this kind of knowing that guilty, yes. Yes. Yes, Margaret, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, did you say go ahead?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just listening to everyone, it's interesting. I'd like to project the kind of courage that I would hope that I would have. But fear can be a real challenge, and it almost feels as though you need to wade in the waters with it to begin uh, to feel less consumed by it, maybe. It's either that or, I mean, this is going to sound silly, but I believe in the devas, and I kind of always have, you know what I mean, in my heart. And at Wat Metta, when I used to go, we used to say very long chants to the devas. And I think that helped me to have the freedom in my heart to call out to them, to communicate with them when I am in need. And I cannot say that there's ever been a time when I've done that and I haven't felt I haven't felt their presence. You know, I felt as though each and every time that I had it truly in my heart to communicate with them, their presence has been available to me. And that is just, I feel privileged and fortunate to be aware of their presence. So that's just something I'd like to share.
Thank you for your vulnerable sharing. You can account to yourself the laptop. Yeah, or you could just, however you want to know. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. There you go.
I'm Tony, and he, him pronouns. I think part of sometimes what I struggle with, especially what's been happening in this current climate, is sometimes I feel this fear for all those who are being hurt out there, and not knowing of any way of helping them. So that's something I sometimes struggle with. But I guess it's a type of aversion or attachment. I'm not quite sure, but it's a little bit of struggle for me because I don't know how to help. It's way beyond the means of, you know, a simple individual like myself. And so just wondering if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that because we actually had a conversation like this morning, actually, in Wake Up Together. I would reframe that in another way, that fear that we have at the root of it. So when we look at the non-fear element that make up that fear, you can see that there's compassion there. And inside of compassion, we are in touch with such deep suffering. The suffering that out of compassion, we want to do something. We want to alleviate it. We want to make it better. And that's the first noble truth right there. Is just to be able to hold that suffering, knowing that, my gosh, there is so much suffering in life. And even as I say that and I'm present to that, it just makes me want to cry because I just think of, my gosh, the masks of suffering that we have to witness. Not only do we endure for ourselves in our own life, but then in the lives around us. That this is how it looks like. So can the fear, can we see beneath the fear, there lies this deep compassion, and can we lean in and turn towards that tender feeling, that we are in touch with the deepest aspect about being human, which is, this deep love that we have for humanity, and seeing this and not letting it, pull us down into a state of depression, but letting it keep us alive and present to the Dharma, the truth that this is how it looks like. Wow. For me, it verifies the first noble truth. Ah, yes, Buddha's right. In life, there is suffering. There's so much suffering. And so, how do we navigate this first noble truth while at the same time maintaining our composure or nourishing ourselves? And this morning, we talked about that. And what does that feeling inside, that angst, that sadness, that tenderness want? How does it want to be expressed? Is it through mindful, peaceful walking? I'm saying that because today there was a peace walk earlier that happened amongst Buddhist groups, or does it mean we just want to cry? We want to set aside time to just, let the tears flow as we witness the pain and suffering that's out there. Or does it, call us into wanting to find ways to protect those who are being harmed, those who are in much worse condition because they're right at the center of it, and we're just watching it from, the outside.
I think another important.
Sure. Thank you, Steve.
I think another important component to that is to respond in a way in which we are not creating more suffering and harm in response to the suffering and harm that we see being perpetrated against others. There's wholesome responses and there's unwholesome responses. And to be in accordance with Dhamma, as we're trying to do, we should be wise enough to know the difference and act accordingly.
Yes, exactly. Yes, acting skillfully and to not add to the anger, or to try to not fall into a depressive state or a sense of resignation, right? But to work to stabilize ourselves so that we can be a shoulder for others to lean on, so that we can be a place of refuge, a shelter, a bridge for those to cross, a boat for others to get across. I think of Shanti Deva's prayer. And when it feels too much, it's, that's when we know we're overwhelmed by this suffering. That is when, with our mindfulness awareness practice, we learn to come back home to ourselves, to be with our feelings, to be with the emotions, to be with our thoughts, our perception, and to come back to be in our body where we're holding all of this, and practice mindful walking, mindful breathing, and to come back and stabilize ourselves. And then working to also see inside of, while suffering is here, can I also access, the goodness that is here now too? And I acknowledge that could be very difficult for someone who is in, great harm. How would it be possible for them to see the goodness? Right? But our practice calls to us to always look for what is possible. And I remember stories of people who have been, oppressed or harmed or raped, and the moment that has them continue to live on and stay mindful and present is that ability to try to see what's good, see what's possible in this, the terrible times. I wanted to share this prayer from Shantideva, who was an 8th century Indian Buddhist monk. And this prayer reads, "May I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a bridge for those with rivers to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those without light, a place of refuge for those who lack shelter, and a servant to all in need. For as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, until then may I too abide, to dispel the misery of the world." So Shantideva made this vow to be a bodhisattva. Bodhisattva is one who is committed to alleviating the suffering of the world. And that became his drive. Yes, Margaret.
Is that a recitation from?
I haven't heard of it as a recitation, but it's more like a prayer or a poem.
Yes, it would be. I'd love to access it.
Yes, I just put in the chat for you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, you can copy and paste it, or I can upload this file too, so you have the file of this prayer.
Okay, I think I'll be able to. Hopefully I'll be able to copy it.
Right. Yeah. So when we witness, this suffering in the world, maybe for some of us it means that we feel compelled to take on this bodhisattva path, right? So this is from the Mahayana tradition, where we take on this path of working to alleviate the suffering of others, seeing that in this life I have many wonderful causes and conditions for happiness. Seeing that, wow, I have the merits, of this life, and now wanting to extend that to others becomes our path, becomes the what drives us, and also what have us continue to practice too, because the more we can understand our suffering, we can understand the suffering of those around us, And as we understand our suffering, we learn about the root of our suffering and how to put an end to our suffering. And then the path leading out of suffering, leading to the freedom from suffering. So, to the degree that we are in touch with our own suffering and how we alleviate our suffering, that is I feel, the degree in which we can make an impact and help others. Yeah. And so the Bodhisattva is one who makes this vow. They just have this strong inclination or commitment to protecting the lives of others. Mm-hmm. The Buddha, before he became the Buddha, became the awakened one. He was a Bodhisattva for many lifetimes. Mm-hmm. So while we work to alleviate the suffering of others, we also work to, reduce our karma as well. Like as Steve said, with acting accordingly, guarding our body, mind, and speech.
Can I quickly say something, Trina?
Yes, Margaret, please.
It just kept coming to my mind, what the Buddha mentioned in one of his suttas, the ocean of tears that we, that over the millennia have gathered, and I think in large part, he mentions that because we are not alone in this experience. And that in itself almost imposes a sense of almost equanimity. When you really take a look at what he's talking about, because my God, it's so true. Yeah. But thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Margaret. There is in history, I keep thinking of Dr. Martin Luther King too, as like, how did he make it through a time like this? So I feel like what he went through was, wow, of another magnitude. There is a letter that he wrote. I couldn't find it. But there was a letter that he wrote in his, he was writing in his journal the night before he gave his last speech and was assassinated. And in that, he was staying up in the middle of the night, and his wife and kids were asleep. I think they're in the motel. And he spoke about his fear. He was so afraid. He was afraid that by what he was doing, that he was going to lose his family. They were going to be harmed. And then his own life. And he talked about this. He wrote about this in his journal. And even as he was present to this fear and acknowledged this fear, he knew that, he had to give that up, that he had to set the fear aside and still stand up and speak. And so, what we did see is that fear in him until, the next day when he came out and spoke and exuded this fearlessness, but the fear was there. The fear was there before the fearlessness. would like to share with you the poem from Thich Khan when he was receiving letters from the Vietnamese people back home when he was exiled into France during the exile from Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and people were writing to him. He received thousands of letters, and he was, really grappling with all the suffering that was there. How can I contain and hold all of this? And I'm here and I can't do anything about this. Right? So he wrote this poem called Please Call Me by My True Names. Don't say that I would depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Look deeply. Every second I am arriving. To be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself inside a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I am the mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear water of a pond, and I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks. And I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself in the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart, not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Pilot Bureau with plenty of power in my hands. And I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people, dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm. It makes flowers bloom all over the earth. And my pain is like a river of tears, so vast. It fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and all my laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up, and so the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. So let's just take a moment to sit quietly and letting these words settle or drift by. So it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so fast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so that I can wake up and the door of my heart could be left open. The door of compassion. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your presence today and for joining me in Sangha as we come together to create and shape this refuge. Oh, thank you, Jayanika. I see you. Thank you. And thank you, Candle. Yes. I wish you all a wonderful day. The sun is still out. May you find joy and nourishment in the warmth of spring today and in these days as best as you can. Yes. And everyone on Zoom, feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to say goodbye there. If you'd like to also give dana, practice generosity, And give to Pacific Northwest Meditation. You can find it on the website. We're also here in the room. And thank you for being here. And
Thank you so much, Trina.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see everyone. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. See you next week.
See you next
Take
week.
care.
Bye.
The teacher seat.
Take
Goodbye,
care,
everyone. Bye, James. Bye, Margaret.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Ready for takeoff to infinity and beyond.